On today's Habits podcast, we're joined by Chris Williams, and he'll be sharing with us his good habits when it comes to digital transformation. So thanks for joining us in the studio, Chris.
You're welcome. It's good to be here.
So first things first, what qualifies you to be our guest expert when it comes to digital transformation?
I spent the last 20 years helping businesses to digitally transform. In other words, moving them from being a Blockbuster to a Netflix. So I'd say that would be my key qualification.
And what is it you currently do at the moment?
So day to day, I help companies to digitally transform. In other words, taking them from where they are today to kind of where they need to be in terms of leveraging digital to win, to grow, be a better business. And the reason I use that analogy of Blockbuster and Netflix, it's probably the one that most people can resonate with, a company that was doing so well and all of a sudden just disappears to becoming a digital company.
And do you deal with businesses of all different sizes? So you'll have seen this happen in small businesses, huge businesses?
I typically work with medium-sized companies, but the stuff that we can talk about is relevant to any company. Transformation is relevant to any business, but the work I typically do personally would be with medium to larger size companies.
So I guess you've seen all sorts when it comes to digital transformation. So what are some of the things that people do get wrong?
I've seen all sorts, definitely, and it's probably easy to break it down into, I guess, groups between big businesses and, say, smaller businesses. With big companies, the main thing they tend to get wrong is not going what I would say all in. They don't, the C-suites, the big bosses, if you will, kind of pass this on to other people to do, and it becomes a bit of a marketing campaign rather than actually taking the entire business on that transformational journey, which means bringing both business and IT together and creating a genuine technology company. That's the big companies, that's the big thing they get wrong, which is why 70% of them typically fail. With smaller companies, in truth, I don't think that they necessarily recognise that they need to perhaps have different habits, behave perhaps differently in terms of the organisation when it comes to running it digitally, or when they're looking at digital as something that's relevant to them. Digital transformation typically wouldn't be thought of by a smaller business necessarily. And that's something that I see now. We're in the midst or coming out of whatever, this big pandemic. There's lots of companies out there that are having to shut up shop. And now all of a sudden they're having to think about digital because it's actually a massive enabler for them. Whereas if universities and business schools and the gurus that are out there talking about how to build a great business actually helped smaller businesses to understand perhaps their operating structures and how they need to be agile, I think that digital would be, and the phrase of transformation would mean a lot more to them. So the mistakes I see them making is that, well, they don't really understand this stuff because there's nowhere really for them to kind of go and necessarily learn about it.
Yeah, I was going to say that would probably be the biggest thing I'd notice is they'd bury their heads in the sand, don't think it applies to them, and do leave it too late.
Yeah.
Especially now if you look at the high street and some of the businesses that are going under, they could have done some of this stuff a lot earlier.
Yeah, and that it's such an important point. That it's easy to look back with hindsight, yeah. But the truth is that they absolutely could have done stuff earlier. We could list out many a high street brands that are now gone, or airlines, whatever it is. But the fact of the matter still remains, the writing was on the wall. You can have a death by 1,000 cuts, which is painful, slow, or we can actually recognise that things are going wrong. And the single biggest thing that these, especially bigger companies, don't do is they don't have the operating frameworks, which are agile frameworks, to recognise when things are going wrong, because all they're focused on is we've got this great big project over the next 3 years, we're going to spend X amount of million and we're going to build this new app or this new website and we're going to transform into this new digital business, and in 3 years' time everything's going to be great. But actually, in 3 months, we can recognise that, well, we're on the wrong trajectory here, we need to change it. But, everybody's still having meetings, whereas a smaller business that's more agile and more lean would have operating practices that would be like, well, that's not working for us, so let's just pivot and change our direction. And that's the thing that a lot of these bigger companies miss. That's where they get it wrong, because they don't review where they are, and they just, they're on a trajectory that can never change.
It's a surprise, really, that such big household names or well-established brands can get it so wrong. And when you do look and you see the story of why they've failed, you think, how has that ever happened? Do you think that's because people are just so focused on their tiny part of the business and there's not that big overview of what's going on?
I think it's a multitude of things. That will be part of it. Culture will be a big part of it. But I think, a lot of the times the writing was on the wall. We can see that, the high street doesn't need to go. Everything isn't always going to, everything isn't just going to go online. People still want that physical, experience in store and through retail. But it's about understanding that the world has changed. So what can we do? And I think there's a level of arrogance in boardrooms where it's sort of like, well, we've got this brand. And they're also going to the same places to get the same advice. And it's kind of like, well, we need to mix it up a little bit. And I think we're in a time now where people recognise this. These organisations are actually saying, well, look, we're being disrupted. We can't be disrupted. We've got to protect our market share. How do we do it? And that now means that they're looking at, well, we need to change the way for which we work, the way for which we deliver, products and services, and act and behave differently, introduce new habits to how we run. And I think that's the thing that stands out to me, is people are recognising that now, but they can do it quicker.
So what are some of the good habits that either you follow when it comes to digital transformation or your clients would typically introduce?
First and foremost, it's adopting an agile way of working. And agile is a principle that was developed for software developers. They develop products. It's all about reducing waste and delivering things quickly and failing fast. And that methodology came from lean manufacturing principles. This isn't anything new. This has been around for 20, 30 years in terms of software development. The lean manufacturing principle has been around for well over 60, 70 years. But those operating principles, that's the one thing, if there was one thing that I see organisations who are doing well at transforming their business, they're growing in difficult times, they're truly transforming themselves and doing great things, they have agile operating practices within their organisations which enable high-performing teams, cross-functioning teams. They don't have a sort of old-fashioned top-down hierarchy in their departments. They have true autonomous teams who are highly skilled people delivering great products and services. That's what good looks like. And that's a good habit, is introduce those ways of working. And they invest in it. They don't sort of scrounge on it. They get the right people in to help them on that journey.
So being agile is massively advantageous to anyone looking to transform digitally.
Yeah. So the second most important habit would be to understand this, that every company is a technology company. And that's relevant and important because if we think about your business, a production company, my business, a management consultancy, a bank, they're actually tech companies. That's how we need to think about them now. We're technology companies that deliver banking services, technology companies that deliver production services, because technology companies have a set of habits. They have those agile frameworks and they focus on building digital products and services that better people's lives in some way. And the behaviours that they have are fail fast, validated learning. We come up with hypotheses. We do short sprints, cycles, and we get stuff out there quickly. And we don't go run for perfection. And that kind of mentality, those habits, are actually critical to survival today because we live in an on-demand world. People don't necessarily want perfection in everything. They just need their products and services delivered quickly, and then for us to understand how we can better them.
Yeah, so it's make it first, almost in a strange way. You don't want to build it and then find out it isn't going to work, and you spent 2-3 years of investment, time to find out it is going to fail. You want to almost test it and then improve it as you go. But you see that all the time in so many things. Apps off your bank.
Yeah.
You can get the first app, or was it beta?
Yeah.
You just improve it as you go, don't you?
Yeah, precisely. And I think the analogy I would give, and I think this is probably the big takeaway of this habit really is, and this is for any company, and my analogy would be this. You're building a hotel with 500 rooms in it. I'm building a hotel, 500 rooms in it. We're competing opposite the road. Your plan is you're going to build 500 rooms and then launch. and that's probably going to take you 3 or 4 years to get there. So let's say 4 years, in 4 years, you're going to generate revenue. I'm going to do 10 rooms at a time, and after 10, I'm going to launch. Now, the difference is I'm earning, after my 10 rooms, I understand that the 500 beds that I've got on order don't actually fit properly. So I've only actually bought 10, so I can change that order. You're not going to find out till way down the line. Now, to me, and to the world out there, they should see, well, actually, I see the value in that. That's the importance of understanding tech companies run like that. We build small and we deliver often, versus the more traditional operating structures, which are just not fit for purpose anymore, because there is huge and significant amounts of risk in it. Now, the negative Nelly out there will probably look at that analogy and say, oh, well, hey, for health and safety, and Mike will have it all sort of worked out, and his reception will be there, as yours will be a bit dodgy. But the point is that investors don't want that. You know, the public doesn't necessarily want. It's about getting out there quick. That's the point.
It's proof of concept as well.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, is your hotel is going to be better in 4 years' time than that hotel is going to be when it's launching, because you'd have had that 4 years of learning experience, and the rooms you're churning out, let's just say rooms 400 to 500, are going to be far better quality than the first 10 that you built.
Because I've got customers and they're telling me what they want, and that's the point. It connects you with the customer much quicker. You know, gone are the days of us having an idea, chucking a load of cash at it, and then, you know, hoping that it goes well. You can market research and everything else, but there's nothing better than putting the product in somebody's hands.
So say if I'm a small business or a medium-sized business, and I want to implement some of the stuff that you're talking about, would I just go and get any management consultant, or, you know, who would I go and trust? Because to me, it's like, you don't know anything about my business. You don't know anything about running a business, would be the first question I would or criticism I would have.
And I think they're fair. And I think, do you know what, again, if we kind of break the group down into the bigger businesses will probably have access to management consultancies and firms. And in fact, one of the challenges they face is that the management consultants that end up coming in have not got the battle scars of running a company, have not got they understand, but they've not got the battle scars of, you know, ensuring that, you know, they're going to investors and, you know, they've got share prices to uphold and all the rest of it. So it's important to find people that do have that level of experience, that understand end to end what's involved in transforming a business. I look at my background. I've been a CEO. I've built digital products. I spent 20 years doing this sort of stuff for my own companies, and then helping others on that journey. So I've sat in all of those seats. I'm a practitioner of Agile. I understand how to build a technology team. And I think if we then transition to the smaller companies who are perhaps looking at this, they may not have the budgets to go and work with, you know, management consultants. But the truth is, Mike, they don't necessarily have to. There's a lot of sort of self-development and self-learning and understanding that can be done, such as reading some books, looking on the internet. What a great resource we have in the internet. You can read up about agile operating practices. These things are available. Resources are available to go and discover and learn about. And I think my advice would be to anybody out there, large or small, is do the due diligence on the people that you're looking to come in and help you. You can get help. It is affordable. I think of the services that are out there, not just from people like me. You know, I produce content to help those businesses so that they don't necessarily, you know, who maybe can't go and, you know, hire consultants on 6 and 18 month sort of contracts to come in and help them, because they're a one-man band or they're a 5-man band, whatever it likes to be. But there's content out there that can help them to, you know, shape their business and their structures to help them get to wherever it is they want to get to, and leverage digital to really make a difference.
So if I'm listening to this now and I want to find some of that content so I can start my learning journey now, where can we find you?
Well, you can find me on LinkedIn, naturally, of course, but you can just go to the website, novus-strategy.com, and there's a resource section in there. You can happily sign up to it and get access to the, I guess, bit more detailed content around some of this stuff.
Brilliant. I really appreciate that. Cheers, Chris.
Thank you.
So thanks to Chris Williams for joining us and sharing his good habits when it comes to digital transformation. If you've got an experience of this, let us know in the usual places.